looking, ghoul looking. Welcome back to the Ghost Gals. My name is Renee, and that is
Dusty.
And we just did a ghost tour tonight with the Ghostly Encounter. It was a great Memorial Day weekend. We had a lot of people come out.
It's busy.
Because Dusty and I were out in the rain. My makeup's a little smeared, and I have a gross pimple. Sorry. Anyway.
Oh my god, don't point it out. I think I lost my voice.
It was super windy tonight, but you probably hear my cat. And can you hear her, Dusty?
Not at the moment.
Well, she just meowed there. But
there it goes. I heard it.
She's very upset with us. But she's fine. Just in case anybody's concerned that I'm like beating my cat to death. She just wants to come out and sleep on the couch, but I told her no.
I don't think anybody was concerned about that until you said it.
I know, now people are like, is she beating her cat? She might be beating her cat. Ghost cat. Oh my god, it's Ghost cat. Anyway,
all right, anyway.
So, welcome to Ghost Gals. You can go to our Facebook page, which is going to pop up on the screen now. And, see, I didn't need to do the sound, but I did it anyway. You can also check us out on YouTube. I almost said Facebook again, but YouTube, Instagram, and we have a website. All that information is going to pop up on the screen for you to observe, and we'll put it down in the description below. You can also go on over to a Ghostly Encounter if you want to take a tour with me and Dusty. Separately. We don't do the tours, together. That'd be cool, but we don't. A Ghostly Encounter has a bunch of different great guides that you can go out and ghost tour with, if you please. And usually we get a bunch of great individuals that come out and do these tours with us. So before we get into our story and our haunted happenings, Dusty, do you have any input?
On what?
Anything. How are you doing?
No.
Great? Okay.
I mean, I'm okay.
Welcome to the haunted happenings. Ding! My ding has been flat these last couple of times. Anyway, this is the haunted happenings segment. These are real stories from real people. Dusty's going to kick us off with our first haunted happening, which is from
Alicia G. So apparently demons discussed who could possess my body right in front of me. It was a dream, but it still felt so real. One was a reptile-like creature, and the other looked like a demon of sorts. Creepy to even think of it. That night, I had sleep paralysis, and my husband told me I was making weird guttural noises in my sleep. I was trying to scream and couldn't.
Sleep paralysis sounds like.
Well, it literally said sleep paralysis in it, so I would hope so.
That's what
Good observation, Renee.
I was paying attention. We should also mention that when we film these, sometimes it gets super late. And like we were mentioning, we just got off of work with the ghost tours, and so it's like, 1:15 in the morning right now?
Oh my god, it is.
So give us a break. All right? Give us a break. All right, so yeah, it does sound like sleep paralysis. It sounds like, because it was in there, that demons were discussing who was going to possess her body.
That is what it sounds like, because that's what she said.
No, I don't know. On a serious note, though, I feel like... I don't know. I feel like... I really wasn't listening. I'm sorry. Anyway.
We'll move on. All right.
Yep.
The next one is from Robin D. I was sitting with a friend on my couch, and all of a sudden, my dog's hair went up, and fangs came out, and she chased something through the house. When my dog got whatever it was in the kitchen, she started yelping like it was attacking her.
Aww.
It was the scariest thing because I couldn't see what she saw, and I felt like I couldn't protect her.
That's sad.
Whenever it involves... Yeah, that was it. Whenever it involves an animal, it's always sad. I mean...
Yeah, I was going to say, if it was like, my husband, I'd be like, meh. I mean, it's still sad, but meh.
Nah, we're good.
My dog, it's like, no.
Yeah.
There's a website online that, I think it's like, doesthedogdie.com. And any movie that's ever existed, if you like type it in and does the dog die, it will tell you if the dog dies at the end of the movie or during the movie. So like I Am Legend has like a big like X on it.
Dog died.
Oh, spoiler alert.
Sorry.
Jeez.
Well, I think that was the best part of the movie. Not the best part because the dog died, but it was.
I loved watching that dog die
No,
a
no,
brutal
I
death.
cried. I think I cried so hard.
I
Oh
cried
my
very hard as
I
well.
cried. Yeah,
I
it's
cried
that.
until my makeup looked like this.
So like your tears went up.
Yes. I was lying down.
Okay. All right. So now we have JHS. It was no one we knew. The events led into the morning and for several nights. My mother recalls seeing children that weren't hers. My elder sister seeing entities messing with doorknobs. They left physical damage to the screens. One night I can recall typing on my dad's Macintosh. Real weird stuff. It did subside, but not until I had crippling nightmares. Whatever is here, I'm back and ready for it. I returned last year to the apartment complex where this happened. Since I've been back, only one strange incident happened where my cat was chased out of the bathroom by something just before it closed the door, shutting out the only light source to the apartment that night. I brushed it off as I've dealt with more paranormal bull stuff than anyone I know.
Yeah, so this is like themed. It's like animals themed. I don't know why like animals.
First one didn't have animals, but you weren't listening to that one, so we were
It's not that
aware.
I wasn't listening. It's just like
I was listening.
it's sleep paralysis, so it's kind of like I don't know that I'm going to say I don't. Since this person I'm sure is not going to watch the Ghost Scouts, and if they do, I'm very sorry. I just don't think that was a paranormal experience. I think that was sleep paralysis. I mean, she said it best, you know. That's what I think. That's what I said. I said what I said. Anyway, with this circumstance, I don't know. They say that animals can see spirits, and like I've definitely had like Stella, my dog. If you're from the AGE page, you know Stella the ghost dog. She's the one that wears the t-shirt. It's my dog for real. She's definitely like seen some creepy stuff in like our old apartment, like stuff that's like followed me home and stuff.
How many times did you just say the word stuff?
I don't know. It's late. But like things have followed me home, and my dog will just like bark. And my dog doesn't bark. Have you Stella? I don't. Dusty, you've never ever heard Stella bark, have you?
Not really, no.
No, she doesn't really do that. And so like I don't know. There's just been a couple times where like she's acted weird after I've been told specifically I brought evil stuff home. So that's my input.
Well, thank you. Those are my haunted happenings, so.
Oh, okay. Well, we're gonna move on to our first story and our only story for this video. I don't know why I said first story. Our only story for this video, which is the Hinterkaifeck. Don't censor me.
Because I'm tight.
I know, right? I feel like that. Spoiler alert for next episode, but I feel like you should have put like a dolphin noise over me.
How is it a spoiler alert for next episode? Nobody's gonna get it.
They'll get it. Oh, the young people will get it, and the old people, well, they'll have to figure it out.
Young people? You mean like our age?
Yeah, we're not that young. I don't know why I said that.
We're not that old either, to be honest. But
we are going to be discussing the Hinterkaifeck murders, which occurred in the lovely mountainscape of Bavaria, Germany, in the Weidhofen area, as it is known today. So I'm Italian American. I'm going to be butchering these last names and names the whole story. Just heads up for anybody that's German or German descent. This is a case that has remained unsolved for nearly a century, with many people speculating as to what happened, but no justice has actually been served. This is very similar to the Villisca axe murders that we talked about last time. This one is I find this one a little more gruesome, and there's like more ghostly aspects tied into this. So you'll see what I'm going to be talking about here in just a minute. So in March of 1922, this was 6 months before the horrific murders of the Gruber family, strange things started to happen around their farm. So the first odd thing that occurred was the fact that the family maid quit after claiming that the house was haunted. So she told Andreas Gruber, who was like the father of the family, the patriarch of the family, that the attic where she had to sleep, it was like her chamber. She was like an au pair who would stay in. So her room was full of spirits, and that she could hear them walking around her bed at night. Right after this, Andreas found a newspaper from Munich, which was over 43 miles away from Weidenhofen, and he didn't remember buying it. He didn't remember going to Munich, and he could not figure out why it was on his property. So he kind of theorized that perhaps the mailman made a mistake, like
a mistake.
Mistake, and he accidentally dropped a newspaper from Munich at his house. I don't know why he thought that was like a reasonable explanation for that, but okay. So a couple of days before the murders, Andreas was talking with the neighbors and asking them if they had seen any funny business going on with their property or his property, and he explained to them that he was concerned because he had found a set of tracks in the snow that led from the forest to a broken lock on his machine room. The machine room kept like some farm equipment and like a food processor, pretty much. So Andreas explained to his neighbors that the issue with the tracks wasn't so much that they were heading to the house, it was the fact that they weren't heading away from the house after they had already gotten to the machine room, meaning whatever went to the shed was still there, right? So he also was a little concerned because he couldn't find his keys and his wife couldn't find her keys, and they had no idea where they could have went. They didn't think they lost them in the house. The kids didn't take them. They had two little kids, or a couple little kids, that were involved in this case that they didn't take them either. So after this, there were reports coming in that Andreas's daughter, her name is Kazila, I believe that is correct. I don't really know how to pronounce that, but it looks like Kazila to me. It sounds like if I say it like Godzilla with like an accent. Kazila.
All right.
Anyway, so Kazila saw Victoria arguing with somebody violently, and then Victoria fled off into the forest behind the property. Victoria would be Andreas's wife. Now, neighbors and family members would also claim that they observed a man with a mustache standing at the edge of the forest, repeatedly watching the house. The family constantly heard footsteps in the attic. Andreas would check to see what these footprints or footsteps were about, but nothing would be up there. So this is where things get a little nitty-gritty. Friday.
What does that mean?
Messy.
Okay.
Friday, March 31st, 1922. Maria Baumgartner gets hired on to be the maid for the group.
Maria who?
Baumgartner.
Okay.
Very German lesson. Maria Baumgartner gets hired on to be the maid for the Gruber family. So they didn't have a maid per month because that last one quit because of ghosts. Me.
Oh, because it's haunted.
Maria's sister helped her move into her attic, like her chamber, not her attic, but the chamber she was going to be staying in, which was in the attic. And, they meet the family. Everything's going great. She's really excited to be the new maid, I guess. The kids are nice. And then they all have dinner and shuffle off to bed. Maria's sister leaves. She doesn't stick around. It should be noted, though, that Maria's sister did not find anything. Oh, sorry, I'm shaking my camera because I'm like...
Didn't find anything.
Did not find anything. Maria's sister did not find anything out of the ordinary or strange about the family. And, she said that Maria looked excited to be a part of, well, not the Gruber family, but to be working for them at least. It seemed like a good deal all around. She would end up being the last person to see both her sister and the Gruber family alive. April 1st, 2 coffee salesmen. I wish coffee salesmen came door to door still.
Right?
I didn't think that's not why they came to their door, though. But 2 coffee salesmen arrive at the Gruber farm looking to place an order with Andreas. I think that they were trying to buy something from the farm. I don't think that when I read that initially, I don't think they were like, coffee, get your coffee, buy one, get one free.
They should, though. I think they should.
I mean, they probably would have sold more coffee.
Yeah,
anyway, they knock on the front door, but they receive no answers. So they go around to the windows and peek in their windows.
Okay, now we're personal space.
Aggressive coffee salesman. Would you like to buy our beans?
Hello?
Hello?
Are you?
Let me in. What are you doing? Oh, you're murdered? Sorry.
We'll come back later.
Do you still want dark roast, medium roast? We have all the coffee.
Oh my god, anyway.
So, they look in the windows. They don't see any life but they don't see anybody dead, so they're not really concerned, I guess.
Okay.
They did notice that the machine room, like house, whatever, the machine house door is wide open. April 3rd, the school starts to notice that Casiela Gabriel, who was the little girl, was not going to school. She was only like 7 at the time, and she was absent without notice. The church is concerned because the family had not been to church on Sunday, and they had not missed a mass ever. They had never missed church. So the mailman goes to deliver the mail. This is the same day, April 3rd. He delivers the mail, but he finds that Saturday's mail is still sitting where he left it. He's a little concerned by this because it also seems like when he left the mail on Saturday, like nobody had been in the yard. The dogs were, like the animals were out. So similar to like the Velisca where the neighbor was like, oh, your chickens are inside. I'm just going to let your chickens out. This guy's like, all of your animals are still in their barn and you guys are a farm. A little concerning, right? So this is when Albert Hoffner, he goes to the Gruber property, Hinterkaifeck, and I'm telling you, every time I say that, I'm like, oh, anyway, so he goes there on April 4th, and he had already, like, made plans with Andreas to fix an engine that was, like, in this machine house. It was like the food chopper, the food processor I was talking about. And he said that he didn't see any of the family. He didn't hear any sounds coming from the farm. So no farm animals. The dog wasn't barking. And after waiting an hour, he decided, I'm just going to fix this guy's machine and dip. He does this within about 4.5 to 5 hours. He fixes the engine. So at around 2:30, in Grobern, I'm not saying that right, he met the village guide. Like, I don't know why they would have needed a village guide, but okay, I guess he was like touring. I don't know what was going on there. It just says he met the village guide. But he meets like the daughters and like of the village guide and the village guide, and this village guide's name is
Village guide. Stuff.
This village guide's name is Lorenz. Oh man, I can't say this. This is okay. I might have to actually bleep this out. This village guide's name is Lorenz Schlittenbauer. I put an L in there, but there's no L. And he told them that there's like some funny business going on in Hinterkaifeck.
Going on in.
There's a lot of hard words in this. So around 3:30, Schlittenbauer sent his son Johann, age 16, and his stepson Josef to Hinterkaifeck, the Gruber property, to see if they could make contact with the family. Like, basically everybody at this point is like, this family doesn't just like up and take vacations, so what's going on? Why? They're mostly concerned about their animals, I think, is what the big alarm was for them.
I mean, it's the theme of the night, apparently.
Yeah. Schlittenbauer headed to the farm the same day. Oh, no, my bad. They didn't make any contact with the family, obviously, because everybody's dead. So Schlittenbauer headed back to the farm and
spoiler alert.
Friends, Michael Pohl and Jacob Siggy, and they enter the barn. Of course, this is when they find the dead bodies of Andreas, Casiela Gruber, Victoria Gabriel, and his daughter, 7-year-old Casiela, because apparently Casiela was a popular name. After they go into the attic, they find Maria Baumgartner and Joseph, who was the youngest family member. He was an infant. They were all murdered in the home. Well, Maria and Joseph were murdered in the home. Now, Inspector Georg Ringruber, why is everybody's last name Gruber? And or like something that kind of sounds like a bad word.
Oh my gosh.
Georg Ringruber and his co-workers.
Georg Josef Johann.
I know. Okay, I'm gonna start over. Georg Ringruber. Georg Ringruber. He is an officer with the Munich Police Department. He brings several other police officers to investigate the killings. The initial investigations were hampered by the number of people who had interacted with the crime scene. So it's the same thing as Velisca House murders. There's a lot of tampering of the bodies and items around the bodies and people. So I have pictures of this that I'm going to show. But for whatever reason, these people are brutally murdered. I was just reading this. And people decided, we're at the crime scene. We might as well make a snack. This literally says they even cooked and ate meals around the bodies while they were doing the investigation.
Who did? The police?
Mm-hmm. I mean, hey, might as well, right? So,
And who looks at like mutilated bodies?
bacon.
So you know what I can go for.
Chili's. Chili's probably.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Outback Steakhouse. That's what I'm thinking about right now. That smells so good.
Whip me up some meatloaf. Put extra ketchup on the top.
Anyway, the day after the discovery of the bodies, court physician Johann Baptist Müller performed the autopsies in the barn where the 4 bodies were found, the initial 4. So there was they found the murder weapon. It was a mattock. I don't know if I'm saying that right. It's basically a pickaxe, and the weapon itself was not actually found in the barn at the scene of the crime. So I guess they found it out by the forest. Evidence showed that little Casilla had been alive for several hours after she had been hit with the pickaxe. In fact, she had torn out her hair in tufts while lying in the straw. The skulls of the victims were removed, so they were decapitated and sent to Munich. The heads were kept in a building in Augsburg and then lost. They lost 6 heads. They lost 6 people's heads.
They lost 6 heads.
Uh-huh. Yep. Because I kept looking. I was like, I've heard of this. I heard that they lost them. But this says that they were probably lost because this was World War II was going on at the time, and that maybe because of the Allied bombings that happened in Munich, that's what happened. But I feel like it's still kind of hard to lose 6 people's heads. Anywho, Saturday, April 8th, the victims are buried in the Weidhofen Cemetery. The police thought perhaps at first that this was a robbery because of what they already knew from the neighbors, and younger Casilla had told like some of her schoolmates that strange things were going on at her house, and so they thought, okay, this must be a robbery. That's who the mustache guy was standing in the forest. So this was kind of like X-nayed when they found large amount of monies in the They found large amount of money in the house. It was clear that whoever the murderer was remained at the farm for several days, and somebody had fed the cattle, eaten the entire supply of bread from the kitchen, cut meat from the pantry. It was also possible that the attacker had remained on the site for several days after the discovery. Neighbors actually saw smoke coming from the chimney all weekend, and I mean, the perpetrator would have easily found the money if the police found it with no help from, the people that owned the money, because they were all dead and lost their heads. Well, then the perpetrator would have found it very easily, right? It only makes sense that this was not a robbery. With no clear motive, they started to have a cold case. Things started to run cold, and they kept interrogating different people, and eventually all the files were closed in 1955. The last interrogations took place in 1986 before, I can't even say this, but we're going to try. It's going to be a hoot. The last interrogations took place in 1986 before Kriminalhauptkommissar.
Yep.
Kriminalhauptkommissar Conrad Müller retired. I should just say Conrad Müller retired. In all, more than 100 suspects were interrogated and questioned throughout the years, but it's just unsolved. They really don't know who did it. There's like several different theories and several different. There's a big theory that's kind of icky, but I'll tell you all about it because it's part of the murder. So one of the big reasons why I think that this went cold is similar to the Villisca Axe murders, right? Because it's the 1920s. I mean, Villisca Axe murders happened a little earlier than that, and like I think it was like 1911, something like that. I don't know. Go back and watch that video.
1912, I think.
Yeah, right. It was like 1912. You're right, because Titanic happened the same year.
That's what I was thinking. That's
yeah. I remember it stole the scene from the Titanic. So this happens like 10 years later, literally. fingerprinting technology was not great, and because they had like a snack and everybody was like, I don't know, playing volleyball with Andreas Gruber's head or
Oh my
skull,
god.
there was no useful evidence to them. There were university students in like the 2000, I think it was like 2005, that they went and tried to solve the murder, but they ultimately determined because of the they ultimately decided that because of the treatment of the crime scene and the age of the case, that it just wasn't possible to solve it, that it was just going to have to remain a mystery for all eternity. They only took 5. This was a big problem for the university students, that they were saying they only took 5 pictures of the crime scene untouched.
As more than the other guys, the Velisca, whatever.
That's true. They don't have any pictures of that at all, because they were like, no, why would we want pictures? Was that scary? So, there were only 5 pictures taken at the scene of the crime. 2 bodies in the barn. I have these pictures. So this is gonna be a warning. If you are a small child, look away. If you are an adult that does not like to see dead people, look away. These are actual crime scene photos from the Hinterkaifeck murders. So 2 pictures of the bodies in the barn. One of the maid lying dead on the floor in her chamber. One of Yosef's wrecked bassinet in Victoria's room, and then an outside view of the yard. Now, what I will say with Yosef's bassinet, I have not been able to find that picture. So I do have the picture of the bodies in the barn, and I do have a picture of the maid, but and the outside of the house, but I cannot find Yosef's bassinet, which might be a good thing, because probably nobody wants to see a dead infant. That's just terrible.
No.
Nobody wants to see a dead person anyway. So a reconstruction based on the positioning of the bodies, though this was useful at least, revealed that Victoria was likely first murdered in the barn, and then her screams were heard by the rest of the Gruber family, and they came out to check what was going on. So probably younger Castilla, and then older Castilla, and then Andreas. But this is just kind of funny to me, because they're all like sitting in there and they hear this woman, Victoria, screaming. She's being brutally murdered in the barn. And then, Andreas is like, what was that? He goes in the barn. Now he's brutally screaming for help. And then it's just like on repeat until they're all dead. Nobody's like, maybe we shouldn't go see what's going on. Like, nobody decided to stay in the house. Well, I guess they did decide to, because you had the maid. The maid was like, I'm not going out there. And she got brutally murdered as well. So, you know what? I don't know why I just went on that rant.
It's fine.
Yeah, so in the house, they made the assumption that the maid must have been killed first, and then the infant was killed. Yosef was killed. So there's this whole idea that we were talking, that the killer had been on the premises and perhaps even been living in the attic, and that's why the first maid was hearing like creepy stuff. So this might have been going on for way longer than just a couple of days. They think that this was like premeditated for sure. Some evidence of this included shifted roof tiles and hollows in the hay, but these were later interpreted as possible hiding places for incestuous activities of Gruber and Victoria. So,
Ew.
It'll get a little icky, unfortunately. I'm sorry. It's just part of the story. Sorry. Yeah, so apparently Gruber and Victoria, they were husband and wife, but Victoria was actually Gruber's daughter. And so this would explain why This would explain why there were certain, like, I can't say irregularities. I can't say that.
Irregularities.
Thank you. Irregularities.
Okay.
So anyway, there was incest going on, just not a good deal at all. Yeah, so there's a little incest going on here, which is going to be one of our possible reasons for murder later, which we'll get to in a few. But 3 days before the bodies were discovered, the artisan Michael Plocky, he was like the copy salesman, one of them, he observed that there had been heat. Like, what? Flocky observed that the oven had been heated by someone. The person approached him with a lantern, it blinding him, and he hastily continued on his way. But Flocky noticed that there was smoke from the fireplace, and it had a disgusting smell. Okay, this was not investigated. There's no investigations conducted to determine what he had been burning that night in the oven. April 1st at 3 a.m., the farmer and butcher, Simon Reblander, on the way home near Brunnen, saw two guys at the edge of the forest talking. The strangers, they saw him and they turned around immediately so they could conceal their faces. When he later thought of the murders in Hinterkaifeck, he thought that this was important information to tell the police, which, I mean, yeah, it's pretty important. So, let's get into who could have possibly killed 6 people and then, just chilled in their house for a couple days. There's a couple of, big theories. This is Carl Gabriel. So, Carl Gabriel was the ex-husband of Victoria Gabriel, and he had been killed in Arras, France, by a shell attack in December of 1914. This is during the First World War. However, his body was never recovered. So after the murders, people thought that if he did indeed die in the war, they would have found some sort of body. There had been some sort of proof. And Victoria gave birth to Joseph illegitimately in her husband's absence. So 2-year-old Joseph was rumored to be the son of Victoria and her father.
Joseph.
Yeah, Joseph. Yeah, exactly. But the problem with that is Joseph and Victoria were kind of married. So there's a lot of icky stuff going on here. Some theorize that Carl Gabriel killed the family to seek revenge, although soldiers from his regiment said that he did die, and that his body was just blown to a million pieces, so they couldn't recover him. The police, they believed him and they never questioned it again. So a lot of people think that Carl didn't die, and then, oh man, you're gonna love this. The next suspect is Lorenz Schlittenbauer. So after the death of his first wife in 1918, Schlittenbauer was believed to have a relationship with Victoria Gabriel. Apparently, Victoria
got around.
But she got around. And it's believed that he was actually the father of Joseph. The initials LS appear on Joseph's birth certificate, but these could be the initials of the doctor that actually helped birth the child. So Schlittenbauer became under suspicion by locals early in the investigation because of his several suspicious actions after the discovery of the bodies. Apparently, when Schlittenbauer and his friends came over to investigate, they had to break a gate to enter the barn because all the doors were locked. This was a little strange because after finding the bodies in the barn, Schlittenbauer apparently unlocked the front door with a key that he had and entered the house alone. A key to the house had gone missing. We had talked about this several days before the murders, and so it's very possible that Schlittenbauer, as a neighbor or just a potential lover of Victoria's, might have been given a key, or maybe he broke in and stole their key. Remember, they talked about a mysterious mustache man that footprints led to the machine room but never left. So they think that he might have killed the family because he knew of the incestuous things that were going on, and that there was an argument between him and Andreas about Joseph, the young son, and Andreas was pretty much like, no, Joseph is mine, and Schlittenbauer's like, curses? I don't know, something like that, right? He probably didn't scream curses into the night. However, for many years after the local suspicion remained on Schlittenbauer because of strange comments he had made, which were seen indicating, these comments pretty much indicated details of the Hinterkaifeck murders that only a murderer would know. And according to reports for the files in the case, a local teacher, oh man, Hans Jablager, discovered Schlittenbauer visiting the remains of the demolished Hinterkaifeck in 1925. So right after these brutal murders happened, they bulldozed everything. Upon being asked why he was there, Schlittenbauer stated that the killer attempted to bury the family's remains in the barn, and it had been hindered due to the snow that came like the day after the killer had killed everybody in there, and so like there were parts of them that were like still frozen in the ground apparently, and this was seen as evidence that Schlittenbauer had intimate knowledge of the details of the ground at the time of the murder, because how would he have known that it was so cold that the ground inside the machine room was literally frozen to the point of where it was freezing their skin to the ground. Another speculation was that Schlittenbauer murdered the family after Victoria demanded financial support for Josef, even though that argument that I was talking about before had happened. Before his death in 1941, Schlittenbauer conducted and won several civil claims for slander against persons who described him as the murderer of the Hinterkaifeck. Now, I'm scrolling down. There's other ones, like this one is from the Gump. The Gump brothers were pretty popular. I think of Forrest immediately.
Bubba Gump.
Yeah, Bubba Gump. And this guy's name is Adolf. Again, he's another person that was supposed to be in a relation. Don't laugh. This person named Adolf Gump. He was somebody that was rumored to be in a relationship with Victoria. Again, this is just like Victoria was the big problem. I don't mean to say that because she was hacked to death with a pickaxe. But all of these theories kind of revolved around Victoria being, as the medieval would say, a light skirt. Carl S. and Andreas S. were also accused. Peter Weber was another accused person. The Bilcher brothers and Jörg Siegel was another one. So we know Jörg Siegel. He was one of the people that came to the Hinterkaifeck house just a couple of days after they had been murdered, which is, you know, they always say that the killer goes back to the place of the murders. So the former maid, her name was, I can't even say, these names are crazy. And that's offensive, sorry. The former maid's name was Kresinsrieger. And she had worked from November of 1920 to 1922 at Hinterkaifeck. She suspected that the brothers Anton and Karl had committed the murders because Anton, he was like a potato harvester and he helped Andreas all the time, and so he knew the premises very well. But Reger said that Bilcher talked to her often about the Gruber and the Gabriel family, and that Anton reportedly suggested that the family should be dead. The maid also emphasized that the farm dog barked at everyone. It even barked at Anton. In addition, she reported speaking with a stranger through her window at night, and she believed that it was Karl Bischler, the brother of Anton, and she thought that Anton and Karl committed the murder together with the help of George Siegel, who had worked previously at the Hinterkaifeck farm and knew the family fortune. However, I don't like this theory, because if he knew of the fortune, why didn't they take the money?
Not a good murderer?
I don't know. It says, though, supposedly Siegel had broken into the home in November of 1920 and he stole several things, but he denies that he did this. He did say that he had carved the handle of the weapon that was used to murder them, and he knew that the tool would have been kept in the barn's shed, like the tool shed. So yeah, this is just a messed up story. The bodies, there's also a theory that like a ghost did it, and there was like a demon in there that perhaps led them out to the barn at night and killed them. But I don't know. I feel like the ghost thing and the actual murders were separate. If it was a ghost at all, I mean, this could have just been a murderer that was hanging out in their house for months at a time. Just a thought. I hope you enjoyed watching us tonight. That's creepy. I hope you enjoyed watching us tonight. We're the Ghost Gals. We do new shows every Tuesday and Friday, and we have some new content coming for you very soon. Coming to you, not for you. That sounds like they're coming for you. Anyway, you can go. What was that?
Continue on.
Okay. You can subscribe to us on YouTube. You can go like our Facebook and go visit our website. You can read our blog that we do weekly. I'm going to be writing My Ghostly Encounters, which is where I communicate with guests on my tour, ask them what their strangest or scariest paranormal experiences were, and I put it in a little blurb on my our blog, and you know, it's all good. So yeah, check all that out, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Have a good night.